Now, in honor of it being the 5-year anniversary of The Last Jedi, I decided to sit down and watch the film again for the first time in, well, almost 5 years, though for the record I did see it almost a half dozen times back when it first came out. Anyway, my original thought or plan was to watch it again and then make some type of long-form video where I go through it scene by scene in an effort to dissect it, trying to be as fair as I possibly can, looking for both good and bad things that I may have missed or overlooked in those previous viewings. Basically, I wanted to step back and try to look at it in new ways if possible and with fresh eyes, and to see how I felt and what I noticed. But it didn't take long for what I felt to be, well, a sense of something akin to apathy. Like I really just didn't want to do this or go into all of this again. I didn't want to make an hour-long video or multiple hours long about this film. I talked enough about why I didn't like it years ago, and in all honesty, even if I went into it with a completely open and somehow unbiased mind, what the video would have almost certainly turned into was me just rehashing all the issues I had with it, and probably just saying one nice thing just because I felt obligated to, like the visuals weren't all that bad. And so instead, what I decided to do was watch it with one simple question in mind. That being, why are there those out there that not only like and enjoy this movie, but have a genuine love and appreciation for it? Which, yeah, sounds bad or maybe insulting in a way, like I'm trying to find the cause for some sort of illness or disease that's plagued the mind of some Star Wars fans. What's wrong with them that they could somehow like this movie? But the simple truth is that, yes, there are indeed some out there that love the film, which, as I've said so many times before, that it's got to be nauseating to long-time viewers, but that's absolutely fine by me if you do. I have no issues with you or ill will towards you if you like The Last Jedi. Hell, I'm kind of happy some fans get enjoyment out of it even though I don't. And so I just want to better understand why they do. And I think I may have an answer after my rewatch, or at least an answer for some of them. Because first it needs to be noted that, yeah, there are some in the fanbase that are automatically going to love and defend anything and everything Star Wars simply because it is Star Wars, which, though I can understand that mindset or desire to love it all, it's actually not the best mindset to have, but I think that is a good topic for another time. Either way, they're not the type of person or fan I'm talking about here anyway. Rather, again, I'm talking about the fan who genuinely does think it's a great film, and not because everything Star Wars is great in their mind, but because they simply think it is a great film, which is usually more or less the argument I hear made by them, that the film itself is great, and that it's something different for or out of Star Wars, that it challenges what we thought we knew about it, that the franchise needed this film. But what I generally don't hear from them is what the film actually did to further the story of Star Wars. And upon rewatching, what really stuck out to me was that it feels like Rian Johnson was far more concerned with trying to do something profound with Star Wars than trying to do something profound for Star Wars. And I mean in-universe, or for the lore and story that was started by George Lucas in the original trilogy, then expanded upon in the prequels and elsewhere. Which probably isn't too surprising when you consider Johnson has admitted to not caring so much about world building, which isn't to say the film has none of it, or that it doesn't add anything to the lore at all. Problem is, what does get added feels like it's added with something like reckless abandon, you can say, or like all the lore that was already established and in place wasn't used as a parameter or a limitation about what he could and couldn't, or should and shouldn't do. And for some, those who tend to enjoy the film, that's not so much an issue. They don't care so much about the greater details of the canon. Who cares if something like the Holdo maneuver fits with the lore, if we now have to wonder why no one has ever done something like that before? Because here and now, in The Last Jedi, it works perfectly for the story Rian Johnson is trying to tell. Why let what came before limit what you can do now? Almost seems like his attitude in the film. And so if anyone who loves the movie ever wonders why the line, "let the past die, kill it if you have to," gets used and mocked so often by those who don't like the film, well, it's not because they don't understand that part of the point of the film is that Kylo, the guy who says it, that he is the villain and he is ultimately proven wrong, but because the guy who made the film doesn't seem to abide by the lesson he's trying to convey. And again, that message, his themes, seem to be the most important things to him, which isn't to say I think he's wrong to want to include a theme or for the film to say or mean something. The other two Star Wars trilogies certainly have a thing or two to say, there is a hell of a story told and lessons to be had in those first 6 films. And speaking of them, what those who tend not to like The Last Jedi find to be one of the most important things in a Star Wars film, or what needs to be there, especially one that is a direct continuation of those aforementioned movies by Lucas, not to mention comes after all the setup in The Force Awakens, a movie that is the epitome of a mystery box that leaves the story hanging and with questions to be answered. Anyway, what it needs to be and do above all else is connect to the rest of the bigger story, not be a film that has something to say about the rest of those films. I mean, flat out, Part 8 of 9 of the Skywalker saga was a really odd time and place for what is in many ways a deconstruction of Star Wars. The fans unhappy with the film wanted it to, yes, be good in its own right and have its theme, but they more wanted it to be something that set up the eventual last movie in the saga, more so than be something that almost intentionally tries to avoid that role and does its own thing. And you have to keep in mind that for many, the most important and hardest thing this trilogy had to do was to justify its own existence. I mean, you're undoing the near perfect and flawless ending we got in Return of the Jedi, and saying that wasn't actually how this particular story ended, that there is more left to be told. And whatever that something is has to not only find a way to be good in and of itself, but be the culmination of everything else that came before it, not to mention have an ending somewhere at least close to on par with the one Return of the Jedi gave us, or, again, what's the point of the story going on? But for some, The Last Jedi doing all of those things, or being a continuation of that previous story, wasn't as important, if important at all. For them, Star Wars isn't about the stories it told before, it's about the stories it's telling now. And though I don't personally agree with that mindset, nor am I saying that's the mindset of everyone who loves The Last Jedi, I do think it explains why some really do enjoy the movie. Which isn't to say I don't think an argument can be made against the movie itself. I'm certainly not conceding that if you removed all the Star Wars from it, if it was some kind of generic sci-fi film, that it would suddenly be a great film. I do think, independent of lore issues, that it still has plenty of issues that get overlooked because perhaps some just like the themes and message that much, and what they maybe see as small issues with the film, if they see and recognize them at all, do not take away from what it's trying to say. And so instead of making that hour-long video or 2-hour-long video that would have turned into why The Last Jedi is bad all over again and would have convinced no one to change their mind about it, I decided to make this relatively short one that hopefully points out that what people want and expect out of things like art and entertainment are almost always going to be radically different. That it's okay for us to like and not like things and to express that an opinion of a film can't be wrong, well, unless that opinion is that The Last Jedi is good. And yes, that was a joke. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell me the reason or core reason why you either do or do not like The Last Jedi, or to tell me it's something you don't care about or think about anymore, that it's time to let the past die and maybe even kill it if you have to. Whatever the case may be, leave your comments below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.